In 1969, the James Bond series took a huge risk. On Her Majesty's Secret Service was the first film without Sean Connery, replaced by an unknown Australian model George Lazenby, and directed by longtime Bond editor Peter Hunt. But what followed wasn't just a new Bond, it was a completely different take on the character. So join me, Steve Clark, as I take a look at 10 good things about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Number 1. Peter Hunt's direction. Longtime Bond editor and second unit director Peter Hunt was promoted to the director's chair for this 6th 007 instalment. Producers Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli believed that his fast-paced, dynamic editing style would bring new energy to the series. With Sean Connery stepping away after You Only Live Twice, the timing couldn't have been better. Connery had begun to look disengaged, and behind the scenes he was growing tired of the role. This was the perfect moment to reset, not just the actor, but the direction of the franchise itself. Hunt wasn't just familiar with Bond, he had helped shape Bond. He understood the rhythm, the pacing, the formula, but more importantly, he understood how to evolve it. Under Hunt's direction, On Her Majesty's Secret Service deliberately moves away from the gadgets and camp tone the series had started to lean into. Instead, it becomes more grounded, more emotional, and far more character-driven. This isn't just a new Bond, it's a new way of telling a Bond story. You can see Hunt's influence in the film's action sequences. The ski chase, the assault on Piz Gloria, and even the chaotic stock car rally all carry a kinetic energy that reflects his editorial background. The pacing feels sharper, more immediate, more visceral. But the biggest shift isn't in the action, it's in the emotion. For the first time, Bond falls in love, truly. His relationship with Tracy, played beautifully by Diana Rigg, isn't a side plot or a passing romance, it's central to the story. She isn't a disposable Bond girl, she's the emotional core of the film. And through that relationship, we see a side of Bond that audiences had never seen before: vulnerability. And of course, it leads to one of the bravest endings in the history of the franchise. Peter Hunt didn't just direct a Bond film, he redefined what a Bond film could be. Number 2. George Lazenby, the most human Bond. The search for a new 007 cast the net far and wide. Names like Oliver Reed and Terence Stamp were considered, but Australian model George Lazenby had a plan. He went to a Savile Row tailor and picked up one of Sean Connery's uncollected suits. He visited the same barber and asked for a Bond haircut. He even bought himself a Rolex Submariner. So when he walked into Cubby Broccoli's office, he already looked like James Bond. Lazenby secured an audition and famously impressed Broccoli by accidentally hitting a stuntman during a test fight. One thing was immediately clear: this Bond had real physicality. And that physicality is put to great use in the film. The fight scenes feel more grounded, scrappier and more dangerous. When you see Bond fighting on the beach, it's obvious this isn't Connery, but that's not a bad thing. You believe this Bond can handle himself, but you also believe he may not walk away completely unscathed. Lazenby doesn't have Connery's effortless swagger, but again that works in the film's favour. This version of Bond feels more like a man and not an invincible secret agent. What some saw as a weakness at the time is actually one of the film's greatest strengths. For the first time, we see Bond fall in love, genuinely. His relationship with Tracy feels real and emotionally grounded. You believe that this Bond would propose marriage and even consider leaving the service behind. There are moments where Bond seems uncertain, even vulnerable. He isn't emotionally guarded in the way previous versions were, and that openness is exactly why Lazenby works so well in this film. By the time we reach the ending, everything is built to that emotional payoff, and Lazenby does deliver. Without that vulnerability, the moment simply wouldn't land. In a film that asks Bond to feel more human, Lazenby is exactly the right 007. Number 3. Tracy, the best Bond girl. Diana Rigg shines as Contessa Teresa Tracy de Vincenzo, and from the very start, it's clear she's not a typical Bond girl. She isn't introduced as a conquest or a notch on Bond's bedpost. She's not there for glamour or disposable romance. Tracy is a fully realised character with complexity, independence and agency. When we first meet her, she's at her lowest point, attempting suicide. It's a striking introduction. She may be emotionally damaged, but she's not weak. Bond saves her life, but she doesn't fall at his feet in gratitude, she speeds away. Apparently this never happened to the other fella. When Bond encounters her again at the casino, we see more of that self-destructive behaviour, as she loses a significant amount of money at the baccarat table. Bond steps in to help, but again, this isn't a typical dynamic. Tracy doesn't simply fall into his arms. Her father, Draco, even offers Bond £1 million to marry her. Bond initially refuses, until that offer becomes leverage in his hunt for Blofeld. When Tracy discovers this arrangement, she's furious, and rightly so. She forces Bond to break the agreement, and in doing so gives him the information he needs. And it's from there something begins to shift. As they spend more time together, their relationship develops naturally. It feels earned. Their connection, set to Louis Armstrong's "We Have All the Time in the World," is one of the most sincere and emotionally grounded moments in the entire Bond series. Later in Switzerland, Tracy saves Bond's life, proving she's not just emotionally strong, but capable in action too. And in the quiet barn scene that follows, Bond does something we've never really seen before. He opens up. He tells her he loves her. He proposes. Diana Rigg is exceptional here. She balances strength and vulnerability effortlessly, and she elevates every scene she's in. Even when facing Blofeld, she holds her ground. She doesn't become a passive character. She remains sharp, intelligent, and resilient. And that's why Tracy is so important. She changes Bond, she grounds him, she softens him, she gives him something to lose. Without Tracy, the ending doesn't work. Their relationship is the emotional core of the film, and it's the reason that final moment hits as hard as it does. Tracy isn't just the best Bond girl, she's the reason this Bond story matters. Number 4. Piz Gloria, Bond's most beautiful setting. Blofeld's allergy clinic at Piz Gloria is one of the most striking Bond villain lairs in the entire series. Unlike many previous lairs, often designed by Ken Adam and built on sound stages at Pinewood, Piz Gloria is real, filmed at the Schilthorne Summit in Switzerland. It's an actual breathtaking location, and the revolving restaurant at its centre gives it a unique and memorable identity. Visually, it's stunning. Surrounded by snow-covered peaks and vast alpine landscapes, Piz Gloria feels epic without relying on effects. The combination of Peter Hunt's direction and Michael Reed's cinematography captures it beautifully. The crisp whites, the scale, the clarity, it all makes the film feel incredibly cinematic. When this finally gets a 4K release on disc, it's going to look spectacular. Hunt's style is perfectly suited to the location. His fast cuts and dynamic editing give the action real energy. During the ski chase and the climactic bobsled sequence, you feel the speed, you feel the danger. The terrain isn't just a backdrop, it becomes part of the action. And unlike the tropical glamour of the earlier Bond films, this setting is cold, harsh, and unforgiving. You can even see its influence in later films. Christopher Nolan's Inception clearly draws from this kind of alpine spectacle. Piz Gloria also works brilliantly as the villain's base. It's remote, isolated, and only accessible by cable car or helicopter. It feels like a fortress in the sky, the perfect stronghold for Blofeld. Inside, the allergy clinic blends luxury with something more unsettling. There's a strange mix of elegance and science, with just enough menace beneath the surface to remind you that something isn't quite right. It's a bizarre concept, but it's a memorable one. Piz Gloria isn't just one of the most iconic locations in the Bond series, it's one of the reasons this film feels so alive. Number 5. A bold and unique editing style. With Peter Hunt stepping into the director's chair, the role of editor passed to John Glenn, a name that will be very familiar to Bond fans, as he would go on to direct several films in the franchise. But Hunt's influence is still everywhere. Having helped define the editing style of the earlier Bond films, Hunt understood exactly how these films should move, and more importantly, how to evolve that rhythm. Working together, Hunt and Glenn create a film that feels faster, sharper, and more dynamic than what came before. The cutting is noticeably quicker, the pacing has real momentum, the action feels immediate. In the fight scenes, the rapid edits give everything a scrappy, almost chaotic edge. The violence feels less choreographed and more unpredictable, which makes it feel more real. The action sequences at Piz Gloria are elevated by this approach. The editing enhances the speed of the ski chase, the tension of the pursuit, and the geography of the environment. You always know where Bond is, even at full pace. And that's the key. Despite the faster cutting, the action never becomes confusing. It's clear, controlled, and purposeful. This is skilled editing executed with precision. Just as importantly, the film knows when to slow down. In quieter moments, particularly in the scenes between Bond and Tracy, and in the film's devastating final act, the editing allows the emotion to breathe. The pacing shifts naturally, supporting the story rather than overwhelming it. For a film released in 1969, this feels remarkably modern. You can see the influence it had on action cinema that followed. On Her Majesty's Secret Service doesn't just move differently, it feels different. And that's down to the work of Peter Hunt and John Glenn. Number 6. John Barry's iconic score. Yes, I'm talking about the score again, but in this case it's entirely justified, because John Barry's 6th successive Bond score might just be his best. For On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Barry evolved his sound. He introduced more electronic elements, crafting a score that feels more aggressive and modern, while still retaining that unmistakable Bond identity. And this wasn't accidental. With Sean Connery stepping away from the role, Barry understood that the music had to do some of the heavy lifting, to reassure audiences that this was still James Bond. As Barry himself put it, "I have to stick my oar in the musical area double strong, to make the audience try and forget that they don't have Sean, to be Bondian beyond Bondian." Whatever the intention, the result is phenomenal. Instead of a traditional title song, Barry opens the film with a bold instrumental theme, driven by Moog synthesizer and powerful brass. That fusion of modern and classic sound works beautifully, and it gives the film a unique musical identity. It's energetic, it's urgent, and for me, it's the best piece of music in the entire Bond franchise. Then of course, there's We Have All the Time in the World. Co-written with Hal David and performed by Louis Armstrong, it's one of the most important pieces of music in the film. It doesn't just accompany the love story between Bond and Tracy, it defines it. The instrumental variations woven throughout the film are just as effective, adding a layer of emotional resonance that stays with you. And its impact didn't end there. The fact that No Time to Die brings back this theme for Daniel Craig's final outing shows just how powerful and enduring it is. Although the moment I heard it there, I did think, oh no, someone important is about to die. Barry's work here doesn't just support the film, it elevates it. His evolution of the Bond sound in this film helped shape the musical identity of the franchise for decades to come. Number 7. Telly Savalas' Dangerous Blofeld. This isn't the first time we've seen Blofeld in the Bond series. He was memorably portrayed by Donald Pleasance in You Only Live Twice. But for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Peter Hunt and writer Richard Maybaum wanted something different, something that better suited the film's more grounded tone. The role was initially written with Max von Sydow in mind, but at the suggestion of Cubby Broccoli, it ultimately went to Telly Savalas. Interestingly, von Sydow would go on to play Blofeld in future, but in the non-Eon produced Never Say Never Again. Putting Savalas in the role here was an inspired piece of casting. Unlike previous versions of Blofeld, Savalas brings real physicality to the role. This isn't a villain who sits in a chair stroking a cat, this is someone who gets involved. He feels like an active threat, an equal to Bond. You see that in the action sequences, whether it's the ski pursuit or the climactic bobsled chase, but also in the way he carries himself throughout the film. There's a confidence, a presence that makes him feel dangerous. But it's not just the physicality that makes this version of Blofeld work. Savalas plays him as intelligent, ruthless, and calculating. His plan, to threaten the world's agriculture using the Omega virus and his Angels of Death, is undeniably outlandish, but the performance sells it. You believe that this version of Blofeld is capable of pulling it off. One of my favourite scenes in the film is the exchange between Blofeld and Tracy at Piz Gloria. Tracy has been captured, Bond is believed dead, but she's not a passive character. She requests to be taken to the Alpine Room at dawn, under the pretense of wanting to see the sunrise, but in reality, she's watching for her father's rescue helicopters. Blofeld attempts to charm her, quoting poetry. Tracy plays along, matching him line for line, but it's all part of her plan to buy time. When Blofeld offers to make her a countess, she coolly replies, "I'm already a countess." And in that moment, you see the shift. The charm disappears, the menace comes through, and Savalas plays that transition perfectly. This version of Blofeld is one of the most impactful in the entire franchise, not just because of Savalas' charismatic and dangerous performance, but because of the effect he has on Bond himself, which we'll come back to later. Savalas is superb here, and the way he smokes a cigarette, still iconic nearly 60 years later. Number 8. The climax at Piz Gloria. The stakes couldn't be higher. Bond, Draco and a fleet of helicopters full of Draco's men are heading toward Piz Gloria for a full-scale assault. Tracy is being held prisoner, Blofeld is in control, and his Angels of Death are ready to unleash their virus on the world. As the helicopters approach the summit, everything erupts into action. Blofeld scrambles to defend his base, leaving Tracy guarded, but once again she proves she's no ordinary Bond girl. She fights back, takes down one of her captors, and shows she can hold her own in the middle of chaos. Then the Bond theme kicks in, and the assault begins. Draco's men leap from helicopters into the snow-covered summit, an incredible stunt made even more impressive by the fact the pilots couldn't safely land at that altitude. The stunt performers had to jump into snow without knowing how deep it was. In some takes, they disappeared almost entirely beneath the surface. One of my favourite moments in the sequence is Bond sliding across the ice on his front, machine gun in hand. It wasn't even planned. It was a last-minute idea from Peter Hunt, possibly even from Lazenby himself, and it's become one of the most iconic shots in the film. From there, the sequence just keeps building. The editing and direction work seamlessly together. The pace is faster, more intense. George Lucas would have loved it. The action is relentless, but it's never confusing. You always know where Bond is, where Tracy is, and where the danger is coming from. Bond fights his way through the base, dodging explosions, taking down Blofeld's men, and even finding time for a quick bit of humour, briefly slipping back into his Hilary Bray persona with the line, "Guns make me nervous." Outside, Draco's men set explosive with ruthless efficiency. There's no hesitation, no sentiment, just the objective. Draco shows no emotion when one of his men asks if Bond will make it out in time. Draco simply responds, he knows the schedule. There is one moment that hasn't aged particularly well, where Draco knocks Tracy unconscious to force her to leave. It's a jarring beat in an otherwise brilliantly constructed sequence. But the momentum never lets up. The action shifts from the confined interior of Piz Gloria to the vast openness of the mountain, and from there it escalates into the final bobsled chase between Bond and Blofeld. This is where it becomes personal. It's no longer just about stopping a global threat, it's about Bond going after the man who held Tracy captive. The speed, the danger, the intensity, it all ramps up to a thrilling conclusion, ending with Blofeld's violent crash into the trees. And what makes this sequence so effective is how everything comes together. The direction, the editing, the performances, the location, the score, all working in perfect sync. This isn't just one of the most exciting action sequences in Bond, it's one of the most well constructed in the entire franchise. Number 9. A brave, tragic ending. On Her Majesty's Secret Service breaks new ground in many ways. A new Bond, a new director, a more grounded personal story. But perhaps its boldest choice is its ending. By the final moments of the film, James Bond has done the unthinkable. He's fallen in love and he's gotten married. He's ready to leave the life behind, to walk away from the job and find something else. For a brief moment, he's happy and content, but it doesn't last. As Bond and Tracy drive away together, Blofeld and Irma Bunt return, and in a sudden, brutal act, open fire on the car. Tracy is killed instantly. There's no build-up, no warning. It just happens. A passing policeman arrives to find Bond cradling Tracy in his arms, and what makes the moment so powerful is Bond's reaction. There's no rage, no outburst, just a quiet, almost stunned denial. He calmly tells the officer that Tracy is simply resting, and that they have all the time in the world. And that line is devastating. It takes the song that has come to define their relationship, "We have all the time in the world," and completely recontextualizes it. From hope to heartbreak. Lazenby is exceptional here. Whether the stories about Peter Hunt pushing him through multiple takes are true or not, the result speaks for itself. He sells the moment completely. In this scene, Bond isn't a spy, he isn't a hero, he's just a man who has lost the person he loves. There's no triumphant ending, no witty one-liner, just silence and tragedy. And the reason it works, the reason it hits so hard, is because of everything that came before it. Because we believe in Bond and Tracy's relationship. Because we've seen Bond's vulnerability. Because the film took the time to let that relationship grow. This isn't an ending designed purely to shock, it's an ending that's earned. It remains one of the boldest choices in the history of the franchise, rarely repeated and still referenced to this day. This isn't just a brave ending, it's the moment James Bond became human. Number 10. Bond's most human story. Can you imagine sitting in a cinema in 1969, waiting for the next James Bond adventure, and getting this? Yes, it still has the action. Yes, it still has the familiar Bond touches, but this film is different. Even the original trailer for the film leans into that word, different, over and over again. But in this case, different doesn't mean bad. Different means something far more interesting. It means more human. What I love most about On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the way it takes this seemingly invincible super spy and strips him back. Bond is still capable, still dangerous, still doing all the things we expect, but for the first time, we really see beneath the surface. Through George Lazenby's performance, we see vulnerability, we see uncertainty. At one point, Bond is genuinely afraid, and he allows Tracy to see that. There's no bravado, no mask. And that honestly is part of what makes their relationship feel real. Then of course, there's the ending. For the first time, Bond doesn't lose a mission. He loses something far more important. The woman he loves, the life he was ready to choose. And that changes everything. It's this combination, the performance, the writing, the direction, that gives us the most human portrayal of James Bond we had seen up to that point, and arguably wouldn't see again until Daniel Craig in Casino Royale. There's also that lingering what if? What if Lazenby had stayed in the role? What if the series had continued down this more grounded emotional path? The Diamonds Are Forever we could have got may have been very different, as we see Lazenby's 007 go after Blofeld on a personal mission of revenge. We'll never know, and that is a real shame. But what we do have is this one film. A film that dared to do something different. A film that took risks. A film that gave us Bond's most human story. And for me, that's what makes On Her Majesty's Secret Service one of the very best in the entire franchise. So those are my 10 good things about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I hope this has given you a reason to revisit the film, or, if it's already one of your favourites, that you've enjoyed taking a closer look at it with me. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. It really helps the channel. If you're feeling super generous, please hit the hype button. And if you're not already subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And if you know someone who loves Bond, please share this with them. There are plenty more 10 Good Things videos on the way. I'll see you again soon, but in the meantime, good night.